Rocky Bleier in the 70s with the Steelers dynasty, veteran. An incredible story about him serving and fighting for our country. He has been at numerous Super Bowls on Radio Row telling his story, but also talking about mental health and awareness and depression and much more. And the great Rocky Bleier joins us on 365 Sports with Paul Catalina, Craig Smoke, and David Smoke. Rocky, I haven't seen you in a couple of years, COVID and all that, but first of all, how you been doing?
I've been doing fine. Thank you very much. It's great to hear your voice and be with you once again on your show. So I appreciate it. But otherwise, yes, we have survived the COVID period up till now. So hopefully everything will be good.
So what does Veterans Day mean for someone it's named for, someone like yourself who served our country?
You know, I think the biggest thing about Veterans Day, and it has always been that, is that it's an awareness. It's an awareness event, a day, Veterans Day, and that's what it's all about. A continuous reminder to a younger generation, to the American people, that we are here, and what we have is because of people who stood up for what was right, who fight for their rights, and who's taken that cause around the world, whether it be popular or not popular, but they were willing to put their careers, put their lives on the line. So for me, basically, it is just that. I mean, to some degree, it's easy for the American people to say thank you for your service and to really mean it. But on Veterans Day, it's the honoring of just that, the veteran, and for what he has gone through through his service career.
Rocky, you were injured in the line of duty and then fought back to resume your football career. And that means so much to so many veterans, especially Vietnam veterans as yourself. But that your act and you're going through that, how much do you meet people who talk about their own personal struggles of coming back to do what they want after being injured in the line of duty?
You know, it's kind of an interesting evolution of experiences. And so if you take that Vietnam veteran, or you go back those 50 years or so, and what has evolved since then. So there was a whole group of soldiers that did not get recognized for their contribution, whether or not you agreed with the conflict or the war, but you can't take it out on the soldier. Unfortunately, that period of time was taken out on the soldiers. So those soldiers who had spent that period of maybe 9 years serving their country, had to repress their feelings. They didn't get a chance to talk about it. No one patted them on the back and said, "Hey, thank you," until years later, and it was after the fact. So there was a whole generation of people who were not talking about that experience, and I think that it hurts future generations because it becomes important, like all of our stories of making a commitment, living up to that commitment, things that you learn in the military about yourself, about working together, about teamwork, having one's back, fellow soldiers, you know, all those things that become important within our lives and our careers. So I came back at that period of time, as you had mentioned, at least to a high-profile industry. And so because of that, at least it was a story that was told. And then because of the success of the Steelers, or the team that I was a part of, the story became a part of that success. So I get a chance whenever I have the opportunity to reach out to veterans and to remind them that you have a story to tell, to remind them that you're part of this evolution, to your family, to your loved ones, to your extended family, so that they understand what serving is all about, what they understand, what you had gone through in that experience. And I always like to relate it to to the locker room. You know, anybody who has competed in the world of sports, I don't care on what level, whether it be in grade school or junior high or high school, into college, or if you're fortunate enough on the professional level, is that a locker room is a locker room, and it doesn't change that experience. You just get older, but all the stories kind of remain the same. And it's the same thing kind of in the military. It changes, but the stories are the same, going through basic training, going through advanced training. The people that you get a chance to meet are all part of your life and existence and need to be shared with other people. And so I fully support, groups that allow that to happen. And in so doing, the stories that I get back to some degree are, how people had to overcome obstacles, because we all do in our lives, in transitions of leaving the military and so on. And then it morphs into own personal stories of, that's a great story about coming back and about being able to make it and not giving up and so on and so on. Here is my story, because it was, I had to do this and I had to do that. And so there is that tie-in and relationship that I find that people identify with and want to share their stories. And so it's just an extension, as I was talking about, how important our experiences are, and that experience needs to be shared with families so that they understand.
Is there a day that's gone by in the last 5 decades, as you mentioned, where you have not thought about your service on a daily basis in some form or fashion?
Yes, very few, if any at all, because it's constant. So if just look at what has taken place from the Vietnam War, then into South America, into other areas, and then going back over to the Middle East, and then we're in Iraq and Afghanistan for 20 years. So it has been around us, and we've had so many of, I think, neighbors or friends who have served, have been overseas or deployed, and so it evolves. So yes, I do. There isn't a moment that I've been able to escape it. Not that I want to escape it, but that it's a part of our existence and what happens. And so people want to relate to it because you've been there and you've gone through that experience. And so you have somewhat of a maybe empathetic feeling about what they are going through.
For those that don't know, you badly injured your foot serving our country. You were then told by doctors you would never be able to play football again. Obviously, you did. You had a great career at Xavier High School. The stadium, I think, is named after you. Obviously played at Notre Dame, and then what you did with the Steelers. When you were told you would never play football again, was there any doubt in your mind you would?
There was a question, and one of the things that I relate it to is all of us. Just all of us. If you go back to your childhood, if you go back growing up, if you go back playing sports, back in grade school or junior high, or playing in the neighborhood or pickup games or whatever it is, it's just a natural thing that happens, is that we all get hurt of one nature or another. Not major, but we do. And so we fall down and we scrape our knee, or you twist your ankle, or you might have a broken finger, or you might have a pulled muscle. And so what happens there? Well, you get hurt and it hurts. Okay. So then you tell your mom or your dad, and then they go see a doctor, and then they tell you, okay, you need to do this, or they might give you some medication, and then you got to go through rehab. Then you heal, and then you're back out playing in the streets again. And so it's kind of a learned evolutional process. And so when the good doctors had told me that I'd never be able to play again because of the injuries from their perspective, it was like, well, okay, I've been hurt before, all the way through. All right, I didn't lose a limb. I didn't lose a leg. Damaged. Yes. Okay, fine. But, well, in time it heals. You go to rehab, and you go back working out again, and you go back out and playing. So that was kind of my mindset, simple as it may be, but it was kind of the rationale that I had, or the focus I had. So yeah, did it take time? Yes. Did I get a chance to have the time? Yes. And so, you start all over again, you go back working out, you start getting your body back in shape, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And so fortunately for me, and I truly believe this, is that maybe it was the correct period of time, but I come back to an ownership that had given me an opportunity beforehand, before I went into the service. And they, put me on injured reserve when I came back to try to make the team. And they bought me a year. And the following year, I made the developmental squad, as they have it now. So they bought me 2 years to heal, to get bigger and stronger, and then try to come back and make the team. And then I got to, by 72, I got a chance to make the team on special teams and so on. And so, opportunities exist, but you have to, do your part as well to be able to support those opportunities. And I think the biggest thing in my mind is that what I wanted to erase as best as I possibly could is all the ifs that we have in our lives. If I would have done that, if I would have done this, it might have been, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And so I wanted to get to a point, at least, that if it didn't turn out, if it didn't work out, is that I could erase as many of those ifs as I possibly could and say, okay, fine, it wasn't meant to be, and I will go on with my life in another direction. But at least I tried, at least I gave it 100% from my perspective to try to come back and make the team. So that was kind of, my mindset. And it's the same thing that happens today in the transition of our veterans and our military over the years. And especially, when we have an all volunteer service, unlike back in Vietnam, which was eligible for the draft. And so from 1973 on, it's been an all volunteer military service. So in that case, it's still transition. And you have to be able to reach out and find out what you want to do and get the support and help that you need that might not be part of what the military is. So in all this period of time, so you get, whether it be in the reserves and or in the regular military, is that you get people that would go to the Middle East and deploy, and then they would come back and it'd be in a rotation, almost like a 3-year period. You'd go over for a period of time, up to a year. Then you come back with your unit and go back through training, and you might find yourself back again. So these soldiers during that period of time would find themselves in deployments 2-3 times going over into the Middle East. And you don't understand the pressure or the changes that it takes place, and especially in a society where there's instant communication. I might be over in Iraq, and I can call my wife on the cell phone or family. So all of a sudden there's a problem at home, and I'm over here and I can't do anything about it. And so now it falls on your partner to be able to take care of, that family need, and then you feel guilty. And so you have this emotional tug of back and forth, of expectations and so on, and then going back over again. And it takes its toll. We're only human beings. And so One of the things that is statistic wise, and you see in those transitions, is a suicidal rate. You get mental illness rates. You get people that are contemplating, don't know what to do, where to turn. And at times, you put yourself in the military, and you're getting out after 5 years, 4 years, 10 years, 20 years, 30 years, and so all of a sudden, you sometimes you just don't want to do anything with the military or have anything to do with them, or take care of your benefits, and you just want to go on with the rest of your life. But then you start having, then you may be having concerns or pressures or mental health or post-traumatic stress. And all of a sudden, one day you open the door and you step off a cliff, and you wonder where that came from or what happened there. And you get suicide rates that go up, and especially with COVID over the last 2 years, isolation by some veterans it has just escalated those problems. And how do you take care of them? Well, the VA does as good of a job as it possibly can, but it doesn't take care of everybody, and not everybody's acclimated to go back into the VA. So we have service organizations that are out there trying to do the best that they possibly can to be able to take care of our veterans. And one of those that I'm involved in is the National Veterans Foundation, which has a lifeline for veterans, national lifeline, that if you are, and basically this is it, you are contemplating divorce, suicide, you're contemplating, you're having troubles making adjustments, and all you want to do is have somebody talk to you, and you don't know where to go. And so there is a national number that the NVF has where you can get on the phone with a counselor and just to talk, because all of us as human beings, all we want is just somebody that is interested in us, that I can tell them my problems, or hopefully find an answer, or some human touch there. And this is an organization that I have been with for over 30 years that does that on a daily basis. And so it becomes very important, because now you got a human interest, somebody who's been there, that understands your problem, and not just a bureaucratic entity of going through and filling out paperwork and then coming back tomorrow and doing it some more, and et cetera, et cetera. And it's that moment when somebody makes that call that the voice they hear on the other end is empathetic to their need and listens, and can give them the direction immediately of what needs to be done. And it's like holding your hand. It's like somebody cares. So that becomes very important. But as we're talking about, but it doesn't come cheaply. I mean, it's still one of those issues that need to raise some funds to be able to have the right people on the end of the phone to take care of it. So that's one of the pushes that we're going through on a national basis, and awareness for the National Veterans Foundation and what they do and how important it is. And the fact is that it's a national organization that can use some funding. So that's my message.
Rocky, last thing before we let you go, you mentioned the ownership of the Steelers, the Rooneys, giving you time to do that. How much better would we all be in our professional lives if we approach things with the patience of the Rooney family, that they've had 3 coaches of the Steelers. They, address their mistakes in a very rational fashion. They don't make rash decisions. They, invest in people they believe in and give them time. We don't live in that kind of world now, but the Rooney seems to still do that.
Well, they still, because it's been part of that belief system, part of what they've gone, And Art the third, who now runs the club, is Dan Rooney's eldest son, and Dan was the oldest son of Mr. Rooney, who founded the Steelers. But you're right, and so their whole idea is that if I take the time to hire a coach, if I take the time to vet somebody, I'm going to give you time to be able to develop that, because I did what I was supposed to do, and look under all the rocks and find it. And if I make that decision, then it's also part of the, if you look at the coaches that they have, it's part of a, of a common belief in how they coach and how they operate, and how they take care of their players, and what their philosophy is in that way. And so it's easy to see. It doesn't happen all the time.
Wow.
Because it's if I'm buying a new team, if I'm buying a team over the last several years, it's like, well, I want to return on my investment as fast as I possibly can, and that's just not necessarily the answer to a successful organization.
Amazing when you look at your career, your life as a veteran, as a soldier, as a comeback story. Obviously, the Purple Heart, Super Bowl champion, all of what you did serving our country. Thanks for giving us a little bit earlier than Friday, which is Veterans Day, but every day we need to, in fact, tell these stories about mental health, depression, and other things that go on with people, whether they served our country or not. Rocky, you're an incredible, inspirational story. Always have been, always will be. Those in the chat room said thank you for serving and giving back to our country. We appreciate your time.
Yeah, David, thank you. Thanks for the opportunity, and hope to see you soon.
Yes,
thank
sir.
You.
Hopefully at the Super Bowl coming up in Glendale.
That's it.
Yep, absolutely.
We'll be there.
In Glendale, Arizona. That's Rocky Bleier, former Steelers, 4-time Super Bowl champion, but that's just part. Again, his high school named the stadium after him, and I think there's also a road or a street in his hometown, Xavier High School, what he did at Notre Dame and also with the Steelers. Rocky Bleier, thanks to Chris Visser.